In this exercise, we'll be repairing a stained photograph, doing a little bit of photo retouching on it at the same time. I've already got the file open here that you should have downloaded, and you can see it's obvious there are some water stains throughout here in the background as well as all over the blouse. And I think we'll also go in and fix some dust and scratches, and maybe for a little fun we'll take some of the blemishes and wrinkles out of the face as they would do in a high-end magazine. So I think the first thing I should do is duplicate this layer so that we'll have something to compare to as we're working. And we can duplicate a layer by right-clicking on the layer name over in the layers panel, duplicate layer, and I'm just going to call this one Retouch. And click OK. So that's the layer that I'll be doing all the work on. Now we're going to use our brush tool for this, and it'll be similar to how we approached it in the colorization exercise. So I'll choose my brush tool, and I'm going to work with the blend mode up here, and I'm going to change it from normal down to color, because the idea here is that I want to just recolorize these stained areas. And I do have good areas, so I'll use that as my reference. Now when I'm on a brush tool, I can use a shortcut to get the eyedropper tool, and on the PC that would be the Alt key, and on the Mac it's the Option key. And you can see here when I click it, it turns into the eyedropper tool. So what I want to get is a medium tone out of this clean background, so I'll just pick this blue right here, and you'll notice the color chip has adopted the color. And I just have to paint now using that color. I think I'll increase the brush size. As you know on the keyboard, right square bracket increases it, where the left square bracket decreases it. And I'm increasing even more just to save some time. And when I get in and I have to do detail work, of course I should decrease the size and probably zoom in. Command plus, Control plus on the PC, and just do my detail work, adjusting the brush accordingly. Let me just get in. Oh, looks like I actually messed up there. The corner of the shoulder is there. There we go. And spacebar to move around the page. And there. Now I can zoom back out and kind of do big steps again. So I'll just enlarge the brush. And just come up to the top and across over here, around the head. And when I get to the shoulder here, I'll zoom in and be a little more careful. Decrease the brush size. And pretty well I've corrected the color in the background. I see actually up here I got a little too carried away in the hair. So I'm going to use my history brush. So let's call up the history brush. And we've used this already. And I'll actually put it to default back to the duplicate layer. And we'll go to my history brush. Where is it? Here it is here. And I'll just paint back in time, if you will. So it's kind of like a magic eraser brush. It erases the work that you just did on it. And we'll just come up here a bit. And good to go. Okay, so that's fixed. So that's a little bit of touch-up work on my broad strokes. And I'll go back now to the regular brush tool. I'm just going to collapse the history brush. So I was saying I'd like to clean up some dusts and scratches, if you will. There's basically two tools that I'm going to use for that. There's the clone stamp tool for sampling areas and painting those sampled areas into the new area. And there's a more subtle tool called the healing brush tool. Let's start with the clone stamp tool, which is right here. And again, you can adjust size and feathering. I'm going to keep it at its default here right now. And I'll just kind of show you how it works. Maybe I'll zoom up a little bit over here. And if we go on the right, let's say I want to get rid of this. It looks like there's a bit of a line here. And I want to imitate it from here. I can sample this area here by hitting the Alt key on the PC, Option key on the Mac, and you see here how it makes a target. I click it, I let go, and wherever I paint, it's going to paint. You can see the little cross here, that's what's being sampled. And it's actually imitating what I saw here. And you can see here on the preview, if I paint it over here, I'd actually be starting to paint the face in an undesirable area. Now let me just go up to this button called Align and show you what that does. If I leave it on actually, if I continue painting, it will pick up where it left off from the reference point. But if I uncheck Align, and let's say I sample from over here, so I'll hit my Option key, Alt key on the PC, and I start painting here. As long as my mouse is down, it'll be continuous. And you see I kind of messed up there. I'm going to leave that and I'll fix that with my step backwards in a second. But if I started to paint again, it starts from that new start spot. So you see here how I can kind of repeat that mistake. So aligned versus non-aligned. If it's aligned, the first click establishes the reference point and it keeps that reference point. If it's unaligned, it starts over from the first click reference. Now let me just do a couple of step backwards. Alt Control Z, and I did that 3 times. Okay, so that's the clone stamp tool. So let me see here. I'll just sample a little area over here. And I notice the edge of my brush is soft, which is desirable in this case. And I'll just come down and do a little touch up there. Alright, so that's the clone stamp tool. If I wanted to exaggerate the effect, let me just do it here. Alt key down, sample the eyeball, let's say. And you can see what's happening with the reference crosshair and the area that's being painted. Okay, so let me undo that. And we'll go to the healing brush tool, which is right up here. It looks like a band-aid. Healing brush tool. And it works almost the same way, but it kind of samples some of the original image and does a cross blend. So let's say over here, let me zoom up a bit. Let's see over here, I want to get rid of this area. I'll just sample from here. So I've clicked it with the Alt key down, and if I start painting here, when I'm painting it looks like a hard edge, but watch when I let go. It kind of averaged it out. I got rid of that blemish. Again here you see sort of like some dust and scratches. If I come up here, sample that, click it, let go, start painting around and let go. It's a much more subtle kind of a paint, if you will. So I'll sample here, I'll come over to this hard line and go up it. And it kind of blends. Now I'm not happy with that result, so I'll undo. But let's say I wanted to sample here and get rid of this little dust spot. I just did a click and I got rid of it. So sample, click, sample, click, sample, click, and I'm getting rid of some of those dusts and scratches. But you noticed when I sampled here and went over here, it still retained some of that original dark blue. Now let's just try it over on the face. I'm just going to sample, let's say in the cheek here, and I'll decrease my brush size. And I'll just paint here. And you see how that more or less just lifted the texture and the tone. Again, you do need to be careful where you sample from, but let me try it from here and try to go on the side here a bit. And again, you see how it kept the eyeshadow, but it did get rid of those lines. So I'll try some of them on the chin here as well, on the side of the mouth. Now I'll just kind of sample from below here where it's smooth and a similar tone. And if I increase the brush size, just kind of go over it carefully. There we go. So that's doing a little touch up on the face using the healing brush tool. Now one last thing I'll show you. Oh, you know what? I see I still didn't address the blouse. So let's quickly go back to the brush tool. And I need to sample the color of the blouse, and I don't want to sample the white. What I want to do is sample the middle tone. So I'll go in here, and I'll hit my Alt key again for the shortcut for the eyedropper, and I'll pick sort of this gray in the proper colored area. And now with my blending mode set to color, I'll actually make the brush quite large here. I can come in and neutralize all of that stain. And this is just a large area, so it goes pretty fast. The edges I'd probably want to zoom in and get a little bit careful about. However, since this color is very similar to the background, I'm getting away with it here. Okay, so like I said, actually let me save that. There's just one more little thing I'm going to show you. It has to do with image adjustments. So image adjustments, if we go to levels, there's an auto adjustment, and there is on a lot of these adjustment settings, but if I just click auto for levels, which controls the bright, darks, and middle tones, you see how I punched it up there? Let me just click cancel for a second. I'll do that again. Image, adjustments, levels. It's going to analyze the image, and it will try to make the darkest areas black, the lightest areas white, and realign some of the middle tones. So we do that with the auto key. I can use these adjustment sliders, definitely, but I just want to show you the quick auto key here. Auto. Wow, that is significantly different. And let me save it. So if I go over to my layers, I'm just going to go to the Move tool here and turn off the retouch layer. That's what we started with, and that's what we end up with. 1,000,000% better. So I'd like you to use the brush tool, the healing brush tool, some of the shortcuts for the sampling, and try the image adjust levels to achieve a similar result. And that is your retouch assignment for today.